guys, welcome to my YouTube channel and my very first ever YouTube video. I'm super pumped for it, so let's just dive right in. The movie I want to start with today is a sci-fi thriller 2018 film, Freaks. It is co-written and co-directed by Adam Stein and my very own Canadian boy, Zach Lipovsky. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I strongly suggest not watching this video just because I probably will spoil some things for you. If you don't give a shit about spoilers, definitely go ahead, watch it, and watch the movie. It's available on Netflix and well worth the watch. So starting off watching this movie, I instantly loved it because there's nothing that I hate more than watching a film with horrible cinematography and just like poor use of color, poor use of contrast, like anything unappealing to look at. Like, aesthetic is so big, and I think that a lot of people forget that like black and darkness should not be your whole scheme, and that's a great thing about Freaks. And I think especially with something that is more kind of on the sci-fi side, to use bright colors and like use like a warmer tone is really interesting and like makes it so much more pleasant to watch. It starts off and they're in a rundown gross house, like stains and stuff everywhere, like they're squatters, but the house is still visually appealing to look at, and I really enjoy that. And it gives a nice balance between like the stress of the movie and you're like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen, and the warm, like nice happy colors of the film. They kind of make your brain go, well, how do I feel here? And like that's a lot to do within a movie, and I think that like it just makes the movie so much more powerful, and I think that people need to like do that more, and it's definitely being done more. I've noticed that a lot more within film. So moving on, so the dad at the start of the film, instantly he had me hooked because I was like, he's gonna murder this little girl. He is definitely not her father. He abducted her and he is going to like butcher this little girl. Instantly, that's where my mind goes to, right? I mean, I've read the synopsis. I know that it's about like people in like a world where they don't fit in, trying to fit in because they're freaks, because they have special powers, and I'm like, does she have special powers? Does he have special powers? Is this like some hero shit where he has to like eat her essentially to then have her power? Like, where are we going with this? Turns out no, he's just a good dad. He's just a little bit fucking nuts. Then we fast forward, we see, okay, he's not actually nuts, it's the general population that's nuts. Like it's the classic trope, which honestly, like, this made me kind of not like it as much as I did at the very beginning. It was like if Heroes and X-Men came together and they had a nice little baby that was all colorful and happy, but still super depressed and just like at war within its own mind. And I just think that for sci-fi, and for the newer generation of sci-fi and superheroes that are like coming out, we need to kind of stray away from the trope of it's the government and the normal people versus like them versus the freaks, because like we get it, and I understand like the overall consensus of why they're doing that, and I understand that it is a political statement and it is a statement about like, hey, you know what, like one group is not better than another group, and we shouldn't have power over another group, and like everybody should be equal and everybody should be on the same playing field. But you could also take it as one person should, like one group should have another, like should have power over this, and that movie does kind of do this. And I think it's interesting because their main character is this little girl, and she is the worst. Like, she's actually the worst, and I hate her, but that's also because I hate children in movies like this
in stressful situations, because they just make the situation so much worse. Because you're just like sitting there and you're like, if you would just shut up and not talk while all this was happening, like, less people would probably die. We'd probably get out of the situation better. Like, if you would just calm the fuck down, it would probably not escalate the way that it did, and now your parents wouldn't be dead. But the one thing I do appreciate about this film is that she's 7, and she has the attitude of a 7-year-old, okay? She's not sitting there using logic. She's not sitting there looking like a 7-year-old, but acting like a 25-year-old. You know the movies I'm talking about. She sits there and she's going, hey, I want some fucking ice cream. Dad, I don't give a shit that you tell me every single day that people are out to kill us. I want you to go to the store and get me some ice cream. And that's exactly how a 7-year-old would act. And so I think that this movie did a really good job of people acting the way that people would have actually acted. And I think that is honestly really rare in a lot of the senses when it comes to younger people. Like, anybody who is literally a teenager or younger never acts the way that they should, and I really appreciate that about this film, is that the 7-year-old, she does act like a child. And so we fast forward, and she's kind of creepy, and this is where we can kind of get to the point of coming back to where the us versus them, people could take it in the sense of, you know what, there should be an us versus them. There should be one group holding power over another group. And that comes down to, this little girl is, like, evil. Like, and I'm not sure if she's meant to be portrayed that way or not, but she is somebody who uses their power and abuses that power, and a lot of it is because she is not right and not fully there, and that comes with her upbringing and the fact that she doesn't have a mom and she only knows her dad. But a lot of it also comes down to the fact that, like, she has this great power and she knows that it's a great power, and at the end of the movie, just the look on her face and just what she says to her mom screamed to me, this little bitch is gonna start some shit. Like, her mom is very powerful and she's locked up in the mountain, which is generally in movies where they lock up the people that they can't control. And there's been wars started and they've lost towns to the freaks, and her whole demeanor screams that she is one of those people and that she is somebody that you should be scared of. And I don't know if they meant to do that to show that, hey, you know what, like, we are trying to kind of go in a different direction while still using this same trope, or if that's just the way it kind of was and it wasn't really meant to be anything. But that definitely is kind of like what it screams for me. And so they did definitely, to me, they took it in a little bit of a different direction, but I don't necessarily think that it's still something that needs to continuously be done. Like, for this movie, okay, whatever, but could we stop just making the X-Men into a different movie? The one thing that I love, though, that, like, absolutely love, not the one thing, but one of the things that I love is, like, how literal the dad's powers are. Okay, like the grandpa, he can turn invisible. Cool, whatever, that happens. But the dad, he can create a time bubble around them. And this shit's a literal bubble. Like, I loved that. I loved the way that they visualized the time bubble, that it was an actual, it looked like a little child had, like, blew a bubble and then it surrounded them. And that was their own little safe space. I thought that was super cool, and I think that it spoke a lot about the dad, because the bubble was very, like, it was very tender, right? It's very gentle, it's delicate, it's not out there to harm people. And that's the dad's whole thing, is he doesn't want to kill anybody anymore. He doesn't want to have to fight anymore. He wants to hide. He's gentle. He just wants to be left alone and just live and protect his daughter. And I think that the way that they designed that and the way that they showed that was so well done. And then it speaks out even more once you see his power and you're actually able to visualize that. And I think that the softness of the visualization of his power also speaks a lot to his character and who he's going to be throughout the movie. Then we skip forward to this little girl and they're saving her mom. But this comes down to my least favorite trope used in any movie ever, and I think that it should be abolished because it is so annoying. The dad, who has been there for her whole life, who she has known for the past 7 years, literally the only person that she's known for the past 7 years, who has been in her life, who has taken care of her, made sure that she's been safe. He dies in front of her, saves her, dies in front of her. She watches him die. And she's sad for like a second. And then her mom shows up. Her mom, who she's never met. She's seen her with her powers. Like, I guess she has met her, but like, it's been maybe a week. Like, it hasn't been very long. And she barely knows this woman. And yeah, obviously, it's her mom. She has a connection to her. She loves her. But her dad, who has been there for her always, has just died. And now she just, like, it's just out of her brain. And she doesn't give a shit. And she's just like, Mom, oh my God. Hey. And then her mom hugs her, looks at the dad's body, and again, is upset for, like, maybe 2 seconds. Her husband, who only didn't come to save her because he thought she was dead, who she very much clearly still loved. And they're both barely upset about it. Like, I hate that. Because if you're going to put so much thought into, hey, you know what, this little girl is going to act like an actual little girl. Hey, you know, like, we're going to have it, like, the blood, and that's how we tell if they're freaks or not. Or we're going to put so much thought into his powers and the way that they look. But then at the end of the movie, no one's even going to give a shit that he died. They're just going to leave. They don't even take the body with them. And that's something that I really hate in film, because I don't think that, and yes, obviously I know it's not realistic, it's freaks, it's a movie about people with superpowers, okay? But if you're going to stick to a narrative with your movie, then you need to follow through all the way to those end credits. You can't have realism and thought and put all that into it and then just be like, hey, we're at the end, who gives a shit now? I think that writers really need to actually put more effort into the way that people act after people's deaths and the way that it affects people, and the fact that, like, I know for a fact that if the only person that I knew for 7 years was my dad, as much as I was mad at him because he forgot the ice cream and didn't bring it to me, and then, like, I blame him for everything, I know 100% that if I watched him die, I would be a fucking mess. And I would fall into my mom's arms probably, but I'd be bawling. And when we went to leave, I would make sure to take his body with me, especially when you know that the government doesn't trust people like that, doesn't like people like that, and they're probably going to take his body and use it for experiments. And I don't think that it makes any sense in any movie, and especially in this movie, to have just been like, fuck it, we're just gonna leave. And so I think that, like, that's definitely a downfall of this film. That and the fact that, like, it is predictable in the sense of them versus us. Who's gonna win? We already know who's gonna win. And I think that, like, for me, that makes it's still a wonderful movie and still something I think everybody should watch. But for me, it makes it definitely like a 6.5, 7 out of 10 maybe. The more I think about it, at first I did rate it a 7 out of 10 on my Twitter. It's definitely worth watching. And if you don't have those feelings towards those tropes, then 100% it's going to be like 8 or 9 out of 10. It's a really well done film. But for me, those things are just something that I can't overlook because they just bother me so much. Because I just see them continuously. Maybe, you know what, we're going to up that. We're going to go to a 6.8 out of 10. Yeah, 6.8 out of 10 for Freaks. Definitely give it a watch. I'm so sorry if you're like, you know what, I'm going to watch this. And then I spoiled some things for you, but I did warn you, so that is still on you. And if you like it,
Please subscribe to me. I will be doing these constantly because all I do is watch movies. And please follow me on Twitter, and I am coming out soon with my own website, and so you guys will be able to follow up with everything without having to sit here and watch my videos. You can just read them. Thank you guys.